Okay. Good morning, everybody. We're going to start with Roger this morning because he has a follow-up meeting. I've asked him to, I got to turn that screen off. Do a short presentation today because I've got a lot to cover as well. But if you have any questions for Roger, while we got him, you know, how you can get a coaching session with him or anything along those lines, it's a good time to ask.
All right.
But carry on, Roger. It's good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you as well, Gary. And as always, thank you for inviting me into your homes. I appreciate that very much. And for those of you, please know that I love being a resource to BHG. If there's any way you would like a one-on-one or a chat or anything about traction or systems or ideas, I'm always available to you. So it's much appreciated. And I wanted to ask, do we all know who this is? Who is this dude? And he made this quote: "The major fortunes in America have been made in land." John D. Rockefeller. And Gary thought it was a good idea to build a little discussion around John D. Rockefeller this morning. So I thought I would just tell you a little bit about this guy. He's also known as John D. Rockefeller, but also known as JD the Rock. All right.
JD the Rock. All right.
JD the Rock. And so a little bit about this guy. He had very poor upbringing. He was born near Ithaca, New York. Started his first job at 16 as an assistant bookkeeper and worked his way up. He had a grocery supply store. He realized that wasn't going to make him rich. And he then opened his, formed his own refinery, and he founded the famous Standard Oil Company in 1870. He became filthy rich and lived out the rest of his life as a philanthropist. He died happy, fat, old, and still filthy rich in 1937, right? This is John D. Rockefeller. And some of his main ideas and tactics was he monopolized everything, literally vertical integration from the drill to the gas pump. He monopolized the whole lot. He secured the lowest shipping rates from the railroads, severely lowered prices to outcompete non-cooperative small competitors, and then bought them out. He built, owned any transportation or storage that was necessary. He increased the efficiency at all levels, and he utilized even all the waste products. He used leftovers from oil refining process to lubricate the machinery. He just controlled everything. And his impact on the positive side is that he lowered, obviously, fuel products dramatically. And the cheap oil helped fuel the popularity and the growth of the cars and the middle class. And he provided jobs for unskilled workers. But on the negative side, the system was abusive to workers. It was stressful for small businesses because he almost always forced them out of business. And I suppose society was far too dependent on a single company. And there's some of the pictures in the newspaper. They used to see him as making more money than the Tsar of Russia, more than William the Emperor, the Austrian-Hungary Emperor, King Edward, King of Spain. He made more money than all of them. He was filthy, filthy rich. And interestingly enough, when he retired post-oil, he became a philanthropist. And he retired of oil in 1897, at the age of 58. And he gave all his money away. He literally basically created the Chicago University. He donated $50 million, which was a fortune in those days. His wealth was equivalent to 10% of the GDP of the United States. And he made this through investment in land and real estate and oil and tree. Everything of wealth came through land. And so he passed away at 97, very peacefully in Florida. And he's become obviously a legend in America. And so what is it about land? What is it about land? We're in this industry as well. Look at this. I put this here, going back to the early 1970s. It depicts the rise in real estate values from 1970 to the present. And it strikingly illustrates that despite the severe downturn during 2008, the Great Recession, which felt catastrophic at the time, it appears merely as a small dip in the long-term upward trajectory of real estate values. All right. So I've put this big A here just to remind you, it goes up and up and up, the value of real estate in the United States. And this is an interesting quote. In 1971, the interest rate for a mortgage was 7.33%. If you waited for the interest rates to go down, you wouldn't have purchased a home until 1993. You would have rented for 22 years waiting for the rates to go down. Meanwhile, the value of real estate quadrupled. This is the quote: "Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait." That is the way around it. So it's a little reminder, ladies and gents. Okay, it's a potent reminder of the cost of waiting for the right time and enduring the enduring value of investing in real estate. Again, a little reminder, this is a great conversation starter. On average, homeowners versus renters, the difference in wealth creation. At the age of 60, on average, a 60-year-old homeowner is on average 50 times wealthier than a renter. It's always a good time to buy a home. And you can see Bankrate said it there, buy or wait. That's what people are talking about all the time. And now because of the interest rates, people are thinking maybe we should wait. If you can afford it and you're in good standing, it's time to get into real estate. Waiting is not a good idea. And obviously, as Jessica Luntz, the Deputy Chief Economist of NAR, said, home buyers face the most difficult affordability conditions in nearly 40 years. We get it, and I get it, but just waiting, if you are in good standing, is not the right idea. And you can see all the top 20 metros across the country as of February. Look at the year-over-year growth. Even in San Francisco, 5.2% growth year over year in the great metropolitans. The prices continue to go up because builders can't keep up and the supply is down. And here's from Lawrence Yun, the chief economist at NAR. Astonishingly, greater than 90% of the metro areas experience home price growth despite facing the highest mortgage rates in 2 decades. In current market, rising prices are the direct result of insufficient housing supply not meeting full demand, and nothing is probably going to change that. Here are the home price forecasts for the next across all the august bodies that track it, and you can see the average of 3.1. Goldman Sachs says it's going to go up 5%, 4.8, 4.1 for the MBA. Continues to rise in the United States. And you can see that the original forecasts of housing prices have been, and the current forecast, very, very aggressive, from 1.9 to 5. Fannie Mae from 2.8 to 4.8. Can you explain these things, show these things to people who are talking about waiting? It's possibly not a good strategy to wait. And you can see over here the estimated home price performances projected into 2028. You can see for the next 5 years, the growth that is expected. Across all those august bodies, they are projecting growth. So simply, I showed this last week as well. If you bought a $400,000 home in 2024, based upon those projected growths, in 2029, your equity would be up $83,000. That's not counting your deposit. That's not counting that you've paid down your rent as well. This is the way we build equity. This is the increase in rent over the last 60 years as well. Get out of that rent trap, right? And finally, this is my last two slides. You can see across all income ranges, your primary residence, your primary domicile is the biggest reason, certainly up to this level here, of personal growth. All right, very, very important. And as Dave Ramsey said, when getting help with money, whether it's insurance, real estate, or investments, you should always look for a person with the heart of a teacher. Ladies and gentlemen, have the heart of a teacher. And to finish off with a quote from John D. Rockefeller, this is the poem that he loved the most. He didn't write it himself, but listen to this. A wise old owl sat on an oak. The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we all be like that bird? The message is listen way more than you speak when you're out there. Listen for the fear, hear it, put it in the parking lot, and then find their why, and then solve the problem together. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Roger. That was very good. Any questions for Roger?
I do have one.
Yeah, Alex has a
Hi, Roger.
question.
Sure.
What parameters is Freddie Mac using that they're the only ones that's forecasted a drop?
They are, if I understand the question, they are looking at wage growth in the United States. They're looking at how most of the people are employed. They're looking at that builders are falling way behind, 14 years behind the population growth. And it's literally supply and demand. And they're looking at the trends that have been around for the last 87 years in the United States, and it continues pricing to go up. So that is my best recollection when I looked at the stats.
Okay,
I think that 5% a year is a healthy increase in value. Is that
Yeah.
too high?
It's just a normal market, right? Anything between
Right.
3 and 6, right?
It's like so 5% a year is
Yeah.
normal.
yeah,
So we're basically in the normal up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Continue. In the national webinar I listened to yesterday, the news right now is reporting increases of prices so far this year on closed sales. But when you look at sales and escrow on a year-over-year basis, they're kind of flat
Mhm.
value-wise. So it looks like it will flatten out for a while here, maybe through the rest of the year, but we did have gains through the first quarter into April.
Mhm.
So the press is still saying, housing prices going up. 3 months from now, they may say housing prices flat,
Right.
but we know kind of right now that the housing prices are kind of flat. We're seeing interest rates is a primary factor.
What do you think about the insurance contributing to possibly lowering the pricing because it's so out of control?
unattainable. Insurance costs. Yeah,
That's gonna maybe make the market a little bit softer because of the insurance.
Really?
I don't think sellers, I mean, unless the seller has had their own insurance challenged or.
Well, most of them on it here are.
Yeah.
challenged.
Yeah, so they may not be aware of what burden that's putting on the buyer,
Mhm.
but it's just another of a buyer cost. Anna and I were speaking to a new home, a couple that wants to buy their first home. Just over the weekend. And they said, well, we're afraid the interest rates are too high. And we said, well, and this was Anna's theory because she sees real estate as a wealth building vehicle. And she says, if you can afford it comfortably, no matter what the interest rate is, buy it.
Mhm.
Because it'll go up. And the leverage that you have, you're getting the appreciation on your equity. All the lender's getting is a rate on their mortgage.
Right. But you're
So over time, you're getting that growth.
Plus
on
you
your-
can refinance
yeah,
if it goes
So forget about the interest rate. If you can afford, if you're comfortable with the payment, buy it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we went.
Cool.
Okay, If you have to tune off, Roger, I understand. And if you want to stay, if you don't have a conflict, that's great too. All right, what's new on the NAR front? Well, last week NAR had meetings actually in I think Washington. And the big discussion was around something we discussed earlier. And that is that maybe a solution for the buyer commission issue and the seller not wanting to pay the buyer's agent commission is to have the ability for the lenders to finance that, to roll it into the loan. Well, this is not a popular idea. NAR has previously said it does not support financing buyer commissions. Something is now not allowed under the current regulations. Getting Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to make changes to their loan to value limits is not a short-term or even medium-term solution. There's some talk about potentially pressuring the enterprises to change the rules to accommodate higher loan to value ratios because of these buyer commissions. This person says, let me tell you, that's not going to happen. It took, and being generous, it took 10 years to update the version of FICO that is embedded in the system right now. So, when Fannie and Freddie use FICO scores, FICO changed 10 years ago, but they didn't incorporate it. It took them that long to get it into the system. Something like this would take equally as long, is what he's saying. What is the solution? Mess with the housing finance as little as possible and make sure all the commission is included in the sales price. That's a scenario where buyers and sellers negotiate commission as part of the offer process, where a buyer can ask the seller to pay some or all of that agent's commission, and the seller can counter. Commissions seemingly could be treated like title fees or attorney fees and rolled right into the loan, if the buyer is comfortable with that. And this was a final statement out of those meetings. Lawyers and housing finance do not mix. They mix, but it's more like TNT. They blow up. Because they're looking for political wins. They don't go for the long-term wins. I think it's really important for industry professionals to come up with a joint statement. This is what we would recommend. It will go a long way to clarifying some of the confusion because it's already confusing enough. So the lending industry and the real estate industry, that's kind of what we're looking for, is some kind of common statement that will, allow people to understand what the industry is doing. This is another thing on the NAR settlement. In less than 90 days, August 17th to be precise, when these rules go into effect, offers of compensation in the MLS will vanish. The 70% of the agents who never use buyer representation agreements will have to begin using them, forcing conversations about compensation and the value that were often avoided. We know brokers, agent teams who are on top of it. They're ready, eager, in fact, to begin competing in a system in which the best can win more often. But many others are about to bring spring break in Miami level crazy to the industry. Clinging to the old way in the face of new realities. Where do I find or display the offer for compensation outside the MLS? Is also likely to provide plenty of targets for regulators and plaintiffs' attorneys who will be watching intently. The lions are already in the bush. Focus on the new, avoid the chaos, make it your summer of opportunity. So in this conversation with this young couple looking to buy their first home, we went through all the things we normally go through. You have to talk to a lender, you get pre-qualified, this is what you're going to need to get pre-qualified. We'll put you in touch with a lender and all those good things. Once we know what you can afford and what you're comfortable with paying, we'll determine the price range and we'll send you properties that look like that, right? Okay, so that's all the old conversation, right? So then, we covered all that, and then I said, have you heard anything about the legal settlements that are going on in the industry? He said, no, haven't heard a thing. And probably, well, we know from the studies that 50 or 60% of the people haven't heard about these lawsuits. So the key then was to say, okay, so this is what's happening. There's class action suits that ripple through the industry. The industry is going to be changing its ways. One of the ways it's going to change is that all agents representing buyers are going to have a buyer-broker agreement regarding compensation. Do you know how a buyer agent gets paid? They said, no, we don't know.
We don't either.
When I first started, I knew that no one
So-
knew, and so
So
I
we
was gonna write a.
explained how that
Yeah.
works, you know, you just have to explain, okay. So the long-term, so, you know, way it's happened is that the seller pays the buyer's agent and the seller's agent out of the seller's proceeds. The buyer's really giving them the money to pay that, so you, Mr. Buyer, are really paying that commission. But it's coming from the seller's proceeds because that gives you the ability to finance that. You have to put in less down payment. And you can put in more down payment. And you know, you can achieve a better loan. So that's why that system has always worked that way. The option now will be that the seller may not want to do that. They may not want it to come out of the proceeds. And then we have to negotiate that and see how that'll work out. You could pay it out of pocket. And then we said, and a buyer's agent usually earns 2.5% to 3% of the selling price, just as a listing agent does. So we had to talk about the number to the buyer, you know, which, you know, typically we've never done.
Right,
So that's kind of the new territory when working with buyers.
I think the important point of all that is people ask me these questions. I said, well, buyers always pay the commission, be it 9 to the seller. In this case, it's the same thing, it's just structured differently.
Yep.
So it's not really nothing changed. The buyer doesn't have the money to say on the.
Right.
Is it?
We have a new forms release coming out from CAR with, I think 60 changes. Jessica, who serves on the, CAR, Board of Directors, thank you for your service, Jessica. And there's a number of other, folks who volunteer at the associations and the, other places, the MLS and so forth. I know Karina's on the board, past president, I think, of the Lake County Board. Monica Kangas is on the MLS committee here at Bayris, looking at the changes in the MLS. So thank you all for doing that volunteer work. But anyway, Jessica sent me a link to the upcoming forms release. I will send that out along with recording of the meeting. So if you're interested in getting a head start on the form changes, that'll be in the link that Jessica shared with me, and I'll send it out with the recording.
I
Um,
also put in the chat the timeline for the NAR settlement. If anybody's interested, look in the chat and you can get the PDF there and the link to all the facts with the NAR settlement if you want to follow along.
Great, good, thank you. And of course, those of us who are working with Bayris as our MLS down here is not an NAR MLS, so it's going to have to come to its own conclusions about what to do. There's a board meeting this Friday, and that'll be part of the discussion. I think it'll probably not be resolved this month, but probably by the end of next month, July. Bayris's position will certainly be clear and known to us all. There was one of the things, the questions that's come up, and Bill and Shannon talked about in the legal update last week, was getting agreements with buyers, potential buyers, when they come into an open house. and it was referenced that Zillow had produced what was called a touring agreement. Well, Bill and Shannon are, and nor am I happy with this touring agreement, so if you've seen it, don't use it. Because it basically violates California law by not stating the amount of compensation and things like that, so avoid using the Zillow form if you've someone shown it to you and suggested it. We won't need those forms right away, but we'll part of the release, I believe, coming in June, will be some kind of form that an agent who is looking to find buyers to represent at an open house can have them sign the form at the open house. Yeah, and it won't be the 3-page form, it'll probably be a 1-page form. Now, what I learned also last week was that the BRBC forms are well, we know they're contracts. So they're contracts just like a listing form or an RPA. And as such, GRE wants the broker to have copies of them and review them. So just like we have to submit all our listings to our TCs to put into the broker file, and all our RPAs and all our other documents, we have to do the same with these broker representation agreements, even though they may never result in a transaction. So we've created an email that's buyer rep agreements. That's buyer rep, REP agreements at winecountrygroup.com. And so if you have a buyer broker agreement with your buyer representation agreement, just take it when you get it, sign, and just scan it to that email address. We'll put it in our scanners in the address book. So all you got to do is take it there and scan it.
But is that
Hmm?
is that already available?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I'll send that out with the recording also, so you all have it, but it's buyer rep agreements at winecountrygroup.com. And then we'll deal with it when we get that on the broker side. Any questions about any of that stuff? Okay. Let me go over here and share screen.
Hey,
Okay,
Gary.
so, yes,
All right, it's Mari. I
Hi.
do, I'm curious how the new couple, excuse me, how they responded when you explained the buyer agreement thing. Were they accepting of it, or were they put off or whatever? I'm just curious.
they just accepted it like I mean, they're in a learning mode. So, as Roger said, be in a teacher mode. So we were in a teaching mode, they were in a learning mode, and they said, thank you for all the information you've given us. So
Okay,
they were thankful.
great. Okay, thanks.
So this is a practice tip. Kylie's put that link or that email address in the chat as well. Thank you, Kylie. This was the weekly practice tip from last week. And it has a variety of questions that were asked in the chat there, but they didn't get to. But there were 3 that jumped out at me that I liked. And on page 3 here. This one at the top. How do we handle listing agreements signed prior to the effective date of the NAR settlement? So you have a current listing and then the settlement goes into effect. And the listing agreement needs to be amended. CARs, and the answer is CAR is currently drafting an addendum to listing agreements, which will be signed when the NAR settlement becomes effective on all listings signed prior to the effective date, which used an older listing agreement form, which references MLS offers of compensation. So the part that's being amended out is the reference in the current RLA that says that we'll be offering the compensation in the MLS. That's no longer going to be allowed, so we have to amend that out of the RLA. So that will be in the forms release. This question further down here. Do we wait until the new buyer representation form is released to have buyers sign the current form? And the response is use the current version of all forms until the new forms are released. So don't wait. Go ahead and use the forms and get your buyers signing those buyer representation agreements. And then the last one is last question here is what if the seller wishes to advertise that they performed all work with permits on the house? How do I disclose or represent that? The answer is you represent it by identifying that the information came from the seller and not from you. For example, you would advertise or disclose it as follows. Seller reports that all work performed at the property was performed with permits. Agent has not verified. Buyer should investigate. So what is that old principle I always talk about?
You got it shared.
Yeah, that's part of it. DAD. The acronym is DAD. Disclose, attribute, disclaim. So you disclose it. If you've got it, you give it. You attribute it. Who told you that? You know, the neighbor told me that. The seller told me that. And then you disclaim it. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't investigated it. I'm not going to. Buyer should check it out. So remember DAD. Disclose, attribute, disclaim. Okay.
And just
any-
to update you guys on that form that they're working on, it's the initials is DM-LA, disclosure and modification to listing agreement. And it's a brand new form. So that's what you guys will be filling out if you have a current listing agreement and you need to, after June, do the modification.
Great. Thanks, Susan. All right. Any other questions? All right, some other contract stuff that's come up. EAR has some very good education programs. So when I know we get emails from lots of folks, and a lot of emails from CAR, maybe a couple of days sometimes. But when the ones come across that are education programs, take a look at them because they deal with these topics. I'm taking a seminar next week that's offered through CAR education programs on talking to sellers about the new listings. That's those are available to us, and I usually at no cost. So check them out. Speaking about sellers and their response to this news, those that know about it. Parmita is representing a buyer, and she looked up a listing on the MLS and it said 0 compensation. And then in the comments, it said, call agent about buyer agent compensation. So she called the agent and said, well, what's up? And he says, well, the sellers are lawyers and they have read all the information and.
Good luck. Run.
When they were talking about
No, man.
Okay, first thing let's do is kill all the lawyers. You know, so the sellers are lawyers and they don't want, they realize they don't have to pay that commission. Okay, all right, what do we do about that? Well, that doesn't mean you can't negotiate with them about that commission. It depends on what they want for the house, right?
Right.
So, you know, if you have your BRBC form, you go to your RPA. And your buyer has authorized you in the BRBC form to request the seller or the seller's agent to pay the commission. and they've authorized that, then you check this little box here, G, 3G.
Yeah.
And it says seller agrees to pay the obligation of buyer to compensate buyer's broker under a separate agreement. The SPBB, which is attached. Seller brokers to the seller broker's offer. If any. Okay. Seller broker's offer, if any, to compensate buyer's broker is unaffected unless otherwise agreed.
That's put in the percent in there too.
Not in this spot here, but in the SPV you would. And remember, whatever you put into your BRBC, that you're gonna be paid 2.5%, 3%, whatever it is. What you're asking the seller to pay can't exceed that. So it's like if the seller's asking, offering 3 and you've only put in your BRBC 2.5, then you're gonna get paid 2.5, and the seller's gonna keep that other half.
So what we're gonna try to do is we always do strive for 30%.
Yeah, I mean,
Our seller and broker agreement, or buyer.
buyer broker agreement, sure. I mean,
Just say, you
and
know what, standard 6%, that's what I get.
no standard.
No.
Don't use the word standard.
That's why we're.
That's where we get, yeah, that's where we get sued. There's no
Okay.
standard.
Yeah.
Standard,
Says, my income, requires I be paid
3%.
3%,
Cost of living.
and the value I bring to you, doing all these things. You'll see, my clients believe it's worth it. I can put you in touch with my clients who have worked with me, and they'll all say it was worth it.
Okay, this might be a little out of the scope, but I have a seller client that will be going live July 28th. For all intents and purposes, all she said to me is, I need $1 million out of this. I don't care what you sell it for. That, in my mind, sets me up for a net listing.
Yes,
Okay, what do I hear now? I'm like, should I do this?
well, we did determine that net listings are legal in
but
California,
it's one of those
but
like,
very, very rarely used.
yeah. But it's one of the things where it's almost like, I think, and I answered her, maybe we should discuss compensation as we get closer, because I'm really not that comfortable doing a net
Yeah,
listing.
yeah.
So I said, I'd rather make the compensations clear.
Yeah.
Or good advertising, tell them.
Right.
We've been talking about.
Yeah, we don't use the net listing very often because it can be abused.
Yeah.
If you get referred a deal down to San Jose, because we didn't have a BHG office down there. We went to an Asian with another broker. Anyway, it turns out they went and met our clients, the referring agent's client. And it was an elderly woman. They convinced her what the price should be and the price. And then they put it in the MLS and they got 40 offers. And it sold for $200,000 in excess of what they put the price at. Now, were they just stupid? No, that's a game they were playing. And then they asked her, well, since we got you so much money over your asking price, we'd like another $50,000.
After the fact?
After the fact.
Oh, that's okay. No.
Yeah. So this is kind of a net listing thing.
Yeah.
If you said, if she says, I want $1 million, but really she, under normal circumstances, would net $1.1 million.
Yeah,
You're gonna be, somebody's gonna find that out and you're gonna be on the stick, you're gonna be the sticky for the $100,000
Yeah.
that she really should have had.
right, exactly.
So I wouldn't be too cognizant of what she's saying she wants to net, that's fine. Figure out what the market value is.
Yeah.
Do a net sheet. And if it's more, show her that. Hey, you should net $1.1 million after commissions here. Or if it's less, 950, you say, well, it's gonna be tough for us to get you $1 million because the market's not there.
Yeah, I've already kind of gotten down.
Yeah. So I do think it's better what you're planning to do is find a fixed amount. 3%, 2.5%.
Be a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's paragraph 3G3. We got to get used to seeing that. And then another question came up in the RPA this week, and it had to do with the seller signing at the very bottom of the contract in the representative capacity area. Okay, so our agent is a listing agent. They know the property is held in trust. But they kind of forgot how this representative capacity paragraph works. Sorry to scroll like this one. I think I'm getting there. Okay, down here. Acceptance, 33. So they knew and actually had the listing in the name of the trust and signed the RLA, the listing agreement properly. But in this one, they just didn't check the box, maybe entity side the box. And they just had the seller sign. So because they're an entity, they're a trust, we really need to check that entity box. Put in the name of a legally authorized signer. If the entity is a trust or under probate, the following is the full name of the trust or probate case, including case number, and then you would, Snedeker Trust. Anyway, you put in the name there. And then I just sign as Garrett Snedeker. I don't have to sign as trustee or anything like that. So remember, if you have an entity that's a buyer or a seller, it's already built into the contract form here. Let's try that again. Oh, that went away. Okay. Some other things came up this week. The buyer counter offer. The buyer counter offer has an interesting paragraph under paragraph 1C. And it has to do with if there's an appraisal gap. And so the buyer makes an offer and they waive or they put in there that the property shall appraise for no less than. And they put in an amount. And then let's say there's a $50,000 gap there. They're offering 50,000 over ask price. And they the listing price was $950, and they'll accept an appraisal up to $1 million, right? Now the seller's countered at $1.1 million. So now that gap is grown. So paragraph 1C in those counter offer deals with that. How you carry over the appraisal gap. Because it gets adjusted. So be careful, be aware that if you're dealing with a property where there's an appraisal contingency. The last thing I have around that is around contracts today is counting days. So remember, days start counting on the day the contract is delivered. The fully ratified contract is delivered to the other party. So our agent has a listing. They received via email a copy of an offer on the 13th. It's signed on the 12th by the buyer. So her question is, when does the 3 days run out to respond, for the seller to respond? So do you count from the day it's signed, the 12th? Or from the day it third?
Next
So
day,
it's
right?
delivered.
The day signed is zero.
Well, no, isn't it?
No, the day it's delivered is zero.
Yeah.
So the day it's delivered is zero. So the 13th was zero, 14th, 15th, 16th. So listing the response time expires at 5 PM on the 16th.
5 p.m., not.
Well, it's 5 PM as a standard. Right? That's built into the contract. Okay? So remember how to count days. There's a definition of it in the RPA if you ever forget. On one other thing, we're representing a property, we manage a property. Our agent is Brian Gord, manages some properties up in the Up Valley, Napa. And he does a good job at it. And if you never need a referral for a property management manager up that way, Ryan's excellent. So we have he had written a lease for the owner and the tenants in there, and then the owner died. So the question was, does that terminate the lease? You gotta know, anybody think it would terminate the lease? He was under the impression that it would terminate the lease. So I said, well, let's look at the lease agreement. So we looked at the lease agreement, there was no reference in there. And then we said, well, let's dig a little deeper and we'll, DRE reference book. So in the DRE reference book on the DRE website, there's a part that deals with leases. And it talks about termination of leases. And there are circumstances that may terminate a lease. And one of the things that may terminate lease is the death of the parties. So
So that's
it doesn't automatically terminate the lease,
May.
but it may. So like if the tenant died and there's no tenant to pay the rent, well, that's
Okay,
gonna terminate the lease, right? But if the landlord died and the heirs of the landlord want to keep the tenant in place, that's okay too. So it can run both ways there.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
The landlord's estate. They don't have to honor the lease? I'm a little confused about
I don't
that
think that
because,
estate would
the
run
estate-
through.
yeah, because the estate upon death of the actual person,
Because
that person, yeah, that person's estate takes on that responsibility.
Yeah,
I mean, at least that was my.
I would
understanding.
think that makes sense.
If the price, I think it all depends, and it's a legal question that we would need to get legal.
Yeah, there's no question about it in North Carolina. I
You
mean.
Well,
the lease continues.
know, we've had the circumstance where we're in a transaction and the seller died.
Oh, well, that's, yeah.
So does the transaction get canceled because of that?
I don't think so, no.
No, it didn't.
No, doesn't.
It didn't.
Yeah,
And because the seller had already signed the documents, they
Yeah.
were already in escrow,
yeah,
we just closed.
yeah.
But if they hadn't signed the documents, then there'd be kind of wait period for the title to be straightened out and they get the proper person signing the deed. So that could go on for, months,
Yeah.
it's got to be probated or something like that. So there's different circumstances each time. So if that happens to you, just check it out.
Bring up a circumstance just for the audience. And you're aware of it. And I had a transaction, property on the market, signed for by the primary owner, but there were 12 people on title. A family situation. And so we went to close escrow and we found that one of the members had been mentioned as one of the owners was under 18. So could not sign their share of the documents, close the transaction. They had to wait for that her to become 18 years old, which is going to be 10 months. So And it was an all cash, full price offer for a nice property, and so we had killed the deal, and it was over. We couldn't wait. Buyer didn't want to wait 10 months for the 18-year-old, 17-year-old, because I'm 18.
Yep.
So it's a thing that you just might keep in the back of mind. There's a lot of people on title and we say, I think sure they're all of legal age.
Right, yeah.
And they're all alive.
Or they have a
Yeah.
guardian that's actually legally.
Just want to slip through and an attorney wrote up this, paperwork, so.
Okay, well, that's all I've got in contract training today. Any questions, comments? Things to share?
Yeah, that's.
My chat's not here.
Time is coming to be a listing agent for all your buyers.
Thank you. That's hilarious.
Oh, where's the chat? Okay, buyer, sign agent. Question, you have the buyer sign again, acknowledging higher commission by seven. Kathleen, I don't understand the question. Are you still on?
Yes, yes, I'm on. Oh, I just took that course and they said, well, if you get a higher commission than on the agreement, you just have them sign it again, acknowledging the higher commission. Not that that's
Okay.
probably going to happen, but yeah,
Okay, well, yes, that could be done, I'm sure.
because you don't
Um,
want to say 3% and have them on the hook for 3%, but you could say 2.5%. And if it's higher, then they're, then you get an addendum or whatever they called it.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Thanks.
That would make sense. Thank you. So market conditions, anyone want to comment on what they're seeing in the marketplace?
The little bit that I've seen is, the prices are holding. Closing, in fact, the area I'm working in, which is down in Mountain View of all places, things are going fast, like 15, 20 days.
Yeah,
And that's why I was saying to my seller, let's hold off. There's 2 pendings that went in 15, 20 days. That's why I told her, hold off, let's see what these actually close at.
Yeah.
Before we actually make the decision here.
Yeah.
So I think the market's actually good, personally.
yeah. Anna had a listing down in San Jose that got overpriced, over asking price offer within 10 days.
Yeah. No.
In our neck of the woods, we went from like 60 something listings 3 months ago to 160.
That's a little corrected.
So we have an abundance of properties.
Yeah, inventory is definitely up, and inventory generally and sales generally rise through the end of June. And then we get into the summer slowdown.
I have a feeling I won't slow down now.
Yeah. Interest rates are key.
Yeah.
So. Any other comments on market conditions where you are? Jessica, what's happening in Lake County?
Things are up. The people are out looking. I know a lot of agents are really nervous about this buyer broker agreement, so a lot of agents call and ask, which of course I like that whole be a teacher thing, because it really hit home for me, because I'm always teaching and I try to keep the, hat on to educate other agents to be good agents. Really, I enjoy that. So yeah, mortgage applications are up from what I understand with a local lender, and things are not sitting as long. But yeah, so not as fast as, the 20-day thing, but it's not sitting 60 and 90 anymore like they were.
Great, thank you. And Elisa, Julie, have any comments on Humboldt?
I'm busy. I'm writing an offer today and got an accepted offer and went and did our first inspection yesterday, and I'm signing a listing agreement.
Great, good. All right, I heard, I think it was Lisa, one of our agents up in Humboldt, said that she watches the market down here, Sonoma, Mendocino, because it generally kind of, this market picks up before Humboldt. And it's kind of like we look at the peninsula in San Francisco sometimes to see, and Marin to see what's happening, you know, down there. So yeah, good to hear you're busy. Any new listings anyone wants to share? Or upcoming listings they can talk about?
I have one that I'm sharing with Dorothy on Cobb. She doesn't have the listing agreement signed yet. It's friends of hers. I met with her. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,400 square feet, home, 1987. Cute house. I mean, it's got a lot of charm. They're working on getting all of their stuff out right now, but we were thinking 329, and it comes with 4 extra parcels. So a lot of land, not usable though, but it's still pretty. It's very private if anybody's looking for a nice kind of house in the woods, you know. And then they recently put all the PG&E lines underground, so that'll help on insurance cost up there. New paved road and things like that on Cobb Boulevard on Cobb.
Yeah, the last time I was up in Lake, I came down through Cobb. There was still snow up in the mountain, which was interesting. And but that's a sweet little community. Karina.
Yes, I have beautiful 18 acres that I listed in Kelseyville off of White Way. It has a 1980 manufactured home on it with a 433 foundation, so it's financeable. It also has a second septic for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath already installed for a granny unit or build your own home, your dream home. And it's beautiful setting, a nice flat area for farm animals, and then of course some little bit of hills and a gorgeous view. We're priced at $580,000.
Great, good. You know, Kelseyville. Kelsey.
Kelseyville, yes.
Julie. Tell us about your new listing.
Well, it is up in Klamath, and it would be classified as a fishing spot. So there's a
What?
boat ramp just over the levee. And it's kind of in rough condition. We're getting it cleaned up, and it won't go in the market until the end of this month or the first week in June. But it's within walking distance of the tap room just down the road. And it is going to be listed at $99,999. So if you know of anybody that wants a runaway getaway, go fishing kind of a destination, give me a call.
What's the body of water it's on?
Mm.
It has a boat ramp? What is the body?
So it's I've forgotten the river right now,
Okay.
but it's real close to the river. I think it's the Klamath River because it's in Klamath County and it's in Klamath, the town of Klamath.
Okay,
It's in Del Norte County in Klamath. It's the Klamath River.
okay, great. Raymond, you want to talk about you and Chelsea's new property?
Yeah, so we have a fixer property up in, right off of Bennett Valley on Cactus. Let's say it's at, yeah. Pretty decent open house on Saturday of last week. Didn't do one on Mother's Day just because I wasn't around and we just couldn't do it. So we're gonna have 2 open houses Saturday and Sunday, 1, 2, 3. And we're going for $699. That's where we're at right now with price. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. I think it could be pretty easily turned into a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. But it, like I said, it is definitely a fixer. Roof is shot, things like that. So
Is it septic or?
no, it's public, yeah. So it's in a little neighborhood, which is pretty cool. Everybody kind of knows each other on a first name basis and all that stuff. I door knocked the whole thing, so
So is it close to Santa Rosa?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
all right, great, good. Any other properties to share? Okay.
I have more if you guys want to listen. But I know a lot of you agents don't come to Lake County, so
Well, give us your highest and best.
well, I still have that $1.7 million mansion on the water, but that's beside the story. So I have a cute little manufactured on Cache Creek. It's got a boat launch and little swimming kind of deck to come on and off your boat. We're listing at $350. It's on Tishatang Road. And then I have another 2.5 acre parcel coming on this week, probably by Friday. It's a nice size manufactured home on Smith Lane. We're listing that at $395. It needs some cosmetic work, and I have a 5 acre parcel I just listed that has utilities, no house, on Eureka Avenue, and that's $179. All in beautiful Lake County, if anybody has any buyers.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you. Let's see, hold on just a second, I wanted to share one more thing here. Okay. So, we have, established a new, property management group. It's called Better Invested Property Management. And, they're up and running and, looking for, properties to manage. And they will pay, a referral fee, for a $500 referral fee. Once a property is rented or occupied by a tenant. And then the agents who refer owners, has the first right of refusal to take the property back if the property the owner wants to sell it. The BIPM folks, Kihei and Corin, offer access accurate rental comps, free service. So if you want to know what a property will rent for, they have a complimentary rental comp system. And they're both experts. They give good guidance and give them a call if you have a property management prospect you want to refer to them.
How much is their fee? Do they charge a percentage of each month's rent, or is it a one-time fee, or?
I believe their fee schedule on management per se is a monthly fee. It varies from location to location, I think.
Okay,
That
and
would be a
do they charge for repair, maintenance and things like that? Would they find the vendors to fix things and take care of that, or would that be up to the owner, or?
Yeah, I think you need to talk to Kihei. She's the investment specialist there. Corinne is the property manager, but Kihei is the business development person. So write down her number. Right now, their geography is Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, or near Santa Rosa, Petaluma, Windsor, Borough Park, Cotati, and they're operating up in Ukiah. They have not yet ventured out into Lake County or over here into like Sonoma. But you could still talk to them and get information. And if you have someone who wants to do property management, Jessica, say up in Lake County, maybe they can work out something where they could have a representative up there. Okay, I'll send this flyer around with the recording. Okay, and the last thing I have today is here's our. Here we are. We're back. So bad situations and optimism. Some of you may have read a book by Martin Seligman called Learned Optimism. You can learn optimism. Okay, so optimism is not the same as happiness. It's more about your explanation for bad situations. So you can have a situation that you're unhappy about, but still be optimistic about. So optimism isn't equated with happiness. The concept of optimism that Seligman puts out there is based on seeing negative situations as temporary, impersonal, and specific to the circumstances you're involved in. So the bad situation is temporary. It's gonna improve or go away. It is impersonal. It's not about me, it's not about me. You know, it's just happening. And it's specific to the circumstances you're in. So that's optimism. That you look at that situation like that, you can be optimistic about it going ahead. All right, so keep that in mind. Maintaining optimism doesn't require ignoring pain, but rather seeing the pain as a temporary setback. Misinterpreting optimism as forced positivity can be detrimental and unrealistic. So don't be positive just because something, you're forcing that. Accept that something bad happened, but look at it as temporary, impersonal and specific. And true optimism is hopeful, acknowledging current difficulty while anticipating future improvement. All right. So, your bad situations, think optimistic. Okay, that's what we got for this week.
Anything on Randy?
Yeah, Randy's enjoying about a 10-day stay in Tennessee. I believe he's in the Smoky Ridge Mountains right now. Doing a little R&R. He's entering a program when he gets back that should finish up his treatment for his surgery. And I think June 1st is the date that he would be back in the saddle, if you will. Okay. But he's enjoying his time. I've corresponded with him a little bit out there, and he's enjoying that beautiful part of the country.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you all next Thursday. We'll be back up in Santa Rosa. Okay. Bye-bye.
Peace.